They didn't meet for a few days. In that space, Michael found himself back at Rebecca's apartment. She was sitting on the couch, a blanket over her lap, her laptop open. The TV played in the background. Some drama she liked with too many plot twists for him to follow. He sat beside her, and for a few minutes, they tried to exist in the same moment. She looked up at him once and smiled. "Everything okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." She leaned against him. "I've missed this. You've been distant lately." "I know." They said nothing else for a while, but he could feel it, some subtle shift in the air between them, a space that hadn't always been there. Rebecca didn't press him. She never did, and that had once been something he appreciated. But now, it felt like they were standing on either side of a gap neither of them had the energy to cross. Later, lying awake in the blackness of his apartment, he thought about Ellie's laugh, and the way she had looked right at him when she asked, "Are you happy?" The truth was that Michael didn't know. He didn't know if Rebecca was happy. He didn't know if they could be happy together. And though he had told Ellie he wanted nothing from her, the truth was he did. Or maybe he was beginning to think he did. It was such a mess. Then, slowly, the rhythm returned. They walked along a riverside trail, watching ducks skim the surface of the water. Michael skipped a rock. Ellie tried and failed. The river carried the rock away with a soft plunk, its current whispering against the reeds. A cool breeze rustled through the trees, bringing with it the faint smell of wet leaves. "I think you're making up the rules," she accused. "I think you're just bad at physics." She shoved him lightly. He pretended to stumble. It was the first time she laughed around him since the engagement conversation. He stayed late helping her restock shelves after a delivery. When the task was done, they sat on the floor between fiction and YA, splitting a soda. The shop was quiet, just the soft hum of the refrigerator case in the back and the faint scent of paper and coffee that clung to the air. "You ever think about that day?" she asked suddenly. Michael froze, fingers tightening around the soda cup as the question hung in the stillness between them. He didn't need to ask which one. "All the time." She studied his face. "Do you even remember what you said?" "I said, 'Hey,' like you were nobody." "You saw me. I know you saw me." "I did," he admitted. "And I hate that I hurt you. I wish I'd said hello." Ellie looked away, blinking. "I was excited to see you," she said. "When I saw you, I thought maybe, I don't know, you missed me." "I did," he whispered. "I was just too full of pride and insecurity to show it." "Do you ever wonder what might have happened?" "All the time." No hesitation, he just said it. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just full. They didn't speak anymore about their dreams. Those were dead. What wasn't was turning real. Another evening, they sat on the bookstore's back steps, watching the sky shift to dusk. Ellie broke the silence. "You know what's strange?" "What?" "I'm not angry anymore." Michael looked at her. "I carried that moment longer than I should have," she said. "It became more than it was. But seeing you now, it's easier to let go." "I'm glad," he said. She looked down at her hands. "But I don't know what this is." "I don't either." "Are we friends?" He hesitated. "We're something like that." She nodded slowly. "Something has to give." "You're engaged." "I am. We can't continue like this." "We can for now." Ellie looked at him. "Okay." Michael sat on the back porch of Laura and David's house, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. The autumn air had just begun to shift. Crisp at the edges, the sky smeared with late afternoon gold. The wooden boards creaked under his chair, and a lone crow cawed from a distant tree as if echoing his mood. David joined him with 2 beers in hand, passing one over before settling into the adjacent chair. "You've been brooding," he said, popping the cap off his bottle. "More than usual." "I don't brood." "You do, actually. It's quiet and thoughtful, like a crow that reads books." Michael gave a low laugh and took the beer. "I'm thinking." "About Ellie?" Michael froze. David didn't press. He just waited. Michael sighed. It's not just her, it's everything. Rebecca, the engagement, what I thought I wanted. David took a sip, his slow nod indicating distraction. And now? I'm not sure I ever knew what I wanted. I just had this idea of the life I was supposed to build. Someone kind, stable, kids, a home. Rebecca fits that mold. But, but I don't think I love her the way I should. And I keep thinking about Ellie. Not in a fantasy way, just in a way that makes me realize how much I've been pretending. David leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. You can't marry someone if your heart's not all in. It's not fair. Not to her and not to you. I keep thinking, maybe I'm just scared. You might be, but fear rarely comes with this much clarity. Michael was quiet. David glanced over at him. And let's be honest. If Ellie wasn't a hang-up before, she is now. That you're sitting here talking about another woman while engaged says more than you want it to. Michael didn't argue. David's voice softened. I've watched you with Rebecca. You care about her. But it's been 18 months and no date. That tells me you're waiting for something to change. Michael exhaled. I think I always knew. Deep down. David nodded. Then be kind, but be honest. She deserves that. Michael rang Rebecca's buzzer just after 6. She answered the door in a soft knit sweater, hair pulled back, eyes tired but kind. Hey, she said. Everything okay? Can we talk? He asked. She stepped aside, not displaying her feelings. That short sentence was loaded. She had to know what it meant. Of course. They sat in the living room, the familiar silence between them now feeling more like space than comfort. Her apartment, once so familiar, had begun to look and feel strange. As if he didn't belong there anymore. The familiar lavender scent of her candles only made the space feel more foreign, like walking through a memory that no longer fit. I've been thinking a lot, Michael began. About us. Rebecca nodded. Me too. That caught him off guard. You have? Her faint smile spoke of a certain melancholy. Michael, you're a good man, steady, thoughtful, and we have something that works on paper. But lately, I've been feeling like we're walking in circles, waiting for a feeling to show up that maybe was never there. He swallowed. Rebecca, I care about you. I always have. I know. But not in the way you want to feel on your wedding day, and not in the way I want to be loved. He looked at her then, really looked, and in her eyes he saw it, the same sadness, the same realization. We've been trying so hard not to fail at this, he said quietly, that we never stopped to ask if it's right. She nodded. I think part of me already let go a while ago. They sat in silence, the weight of the truth settling between them. No anger, no blame. Just the soft ache of something ending before it ever began. I'll call my mom, she said after a while. Let her know there's no need to hold that venue slot. Michael chuckled dryly. She'll be relieved. Rebecca smiled. She liked you more than you think. Then Rebecca reached over and gave his hand a light squeeze. If it's not too weird, I'd like to remain friends. Michael smiled. Of course. We'll be okay. He squeezed back. Yeah, we will. And for the first time in months, he believed it. Rebecca and Michael stayed on the couch for a while longer after the decision was made. The television was still playing, though neither of them paid attention to it. We had fun, didn't we? Rebecca said, her voice soft. Michael smiled. Yeah, we did. Remember the trivia night at Murphy's? When we won by 1 point because you knew the name of the actor who played the original Doctor Who? William Hartnell, Michael said automatically. Rebecca grinned. Nerd. I wore that badge with honor. They both laughed, a little too easily, a little too wistfully. Rebecca grew quiet, then asked, You're going to see her, aren't you? She tugged the blanket a little tighter around her lap, as though it might shield her from the answer. Michael looked at her, startled. Ellie? Rebecca nodded. She didn't seem angry, just a little sad. He hesitated. I hadn't planned anything, but... Probably. I figured. Oh, Rebecca, Michael breathed, feeling like a heel. Stop it, Michael, Rebecca said, her sharp words halting whatever he was going to say. It's not like that. A friend of mine saw you in the bookstore, said you appeared like old friends. I knew nothing about her, of course, but I have a few friends who mentioned it. I never suspected you of cheating. She toyed with the edge of the blanket on her lap. You've been spending time with her. Michael flushed. I'm sorry. I'm not mad, she said gently. If this hadn't already felt over, I might be, but I think you needed to find her to realize how far away you'd drifted. Michael let out an explosive breath. I hadn't realized it, but I think you're right. I won't lie and say that she means nothing to me. Tell me about her. So Michael did. He spoke of their friendship in the ninth grade, his graduation, and departure for high school, the scene in the hallway, losing all contact with her. Then he related their reunion, their growing connection. He was not explicit about his feelings. They were still a jumble anyway. He didn't need to, as Rebecca understood without him saying anything. He ran a hand through his hair. It wasn't about... I know, she cut in. You weren't chasing her. You were trying to feel something again. He exhaled. It's not simple. I hurt her when we were kids. She didn't deserve it. Rebecca gave a knowing smile. You've got your work cut out then. I want to stress, Rebecca, Michael said, taking her hands in his, that Ellie didn't cause this. I've been feeling something missing between us for months now. Rebecca smiled. I believe you, because I've been feeling it too. Thank you. I know I don't deserve your understanding. They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes more. Then Rebecca stood, smoothing her sweater. We'll be okay, she said again. Different paths, but not enemies. Michael stood too. I want that. I do. She leaned in and kissed his cheek. Go be honest, Michael, even if it's hard. He watched her go, the weight in his chest lighter and heavier all at once. Ellie was locking the front door of the bookstore when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, shoulders tensing. It's just me, Michael said. The breath she'd been holding eased out of her. You scared me. Sorry. I should have called. She half smiled. But you didn't. A pause. He stepped closer, but not too close. I wanted you to hear this from me. We ended the engagement. The night was so still that Michael could hear the distant hum of a passing car and the whisper of leaves brushing against the pavement. Ellie's brows lifted. She didn't speak at first. It wasn't right, he said. I knew it before I saw you again. You just reminded me of that. She looked at him carefully. That's not why you're here, is it? No, he said. Not to fix anything. Not to rush into anything. I'm here because I didn't want you wondering. Ellie nodded slowly. Then, after a long pause, she said, I believe you. I do. But I also need to know you're not just transferring feelings from one place to another. I understand, he said. Then I'll wait. We'll move as slowly as you want. Ellie watched him, her expression unreadable for a moment. A gust of wind caught a loose strand of her hair, and she tucked it behind her ear before speaking. Then, finally, she said, Slow sounds good. Michael smiled. Not a wide grin, but a quiet, grateful one. They stood in the street lamp's glow, the cool air brushing between them like a page turning, and for the first time, the past didn't feel quite so heavy. The days that followed were quiet but full. Michael and Ellie fell into a rhythm again. Only this time, it didn't feel accidental. They met for coffee after her shifts, took meandering walks through the local park, and sat side by side in the bookstore, sipping from mismatched mugs while flipping through old paperbacks. They had dinner at Laura's house. Lily loved her and started calling her Aunt Ellie before they sat down at the table. The meeting with Ellie's family was not as easy as the camaraderie they shared with his sister. Grace, Ellie's mother, looked at him with suspicion, and her sister Sophie was almost hostile. The longer Michael stayed and came around and spoke to them, the softer they became. Dinner conversations grew warmer, the clink of silverware blending with laughter that felt less guarded each time. Eventually, Sophie started calling him Big Brother, and Grace looked at him with hope, They didn't talk about the future, not yet, but they didn't avoid it either. There was something lighter between them now, like they had removed the weight of the past from their shoulders, even if neither of them was sure what came next. One afternoon, Ellie received a message from Laura inviting her to Lily's birthday dinner. Family only, Laura had written, but Lily would throw a fit if you weren't there. Ellie had smiled at the screen for a full minute before replying, "Wouldn't miss it." That evening, someone knocked on Ellie's door. It was Rebecca. Ellie had been humming softly to herself, the rhythmic creak of the floorboards under her pacing filling the quiet apartment. The knock cut clean through the moment. Ellie opened the door, expecting maybe a neighbor or a delivery. What she found was a woman she didn't recognize, poised, calm, and wearing a soft expression. "Hi," the woman said. "You're Ellie, right?" Ellie nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm Rebecca. Rebecca Adams." She offered a hand. "I was engaged to Michael." Ellie's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that." "I know," Rebecca said, her tone gentle. "And I hope this isn't strange. I'm not here to start anything, I just wanted to meet you." After a brief hesitation, Ellie stepped aside. "Come in." They sat in the living room, the air slightly stiff at first, like a sweater that hadn't been worn in years. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Rebecca said, "and I'm not angry. I think Michael and I both knew we weren't right for each other. It just took someone else to help us say it." Ellie nodded. "That someone being me." Rebecca smiled faintly. "You're not the reason. You were just the moment of clarity for both of us." Ellie offered a small, uneasy laugh. "Well, that's a relief." They sat for a while, talking. About the town, about the bookstore, about Rebecca's work with a local outreach program, about Michael. Gradually, the conversation relaxed. "You know," Rebecca said, "Michael talked about you more than he probably realized. Not in a romantic way, just with warmth. You were someone important to him. He was important to me too," Ellie said. "For a long time." Rebecca nodded. "I believe that, and I think you're better for him than I ever was. You see things in him I didn't. And more importantly, I think he sees himself more clearly with you." Ellie looked down at her hands, then back up. "I didn't expect this. Your kindness, I mean." Rebecca shrugged. "I loved him. I still care about him. And I want him to be happy." They sat in silence for a beat. Then Ellie asked, "Would you want to stay in touch?" Rebecca looked surprised for a moment, then smiled. "I think I'd like that." They parted with a quiet hug at the door, something new and unexpected forming between them. Not a rivalry, but a tentative, respectful beginning. The evening air met Ellie with a soft chill as the door closed, lifting the ends of her hair and making her feel unexpectedly lighter. And as Rebecca walked away, Ellie stood a little taller, the past settling behind her. "Who was that?" The house had been quiet enough that the sudden voice made Ellie jump, her heart thudding once in her chest. When she turned to look, she saw Sophie's curiosity mixed with a hint of knowing. "Rebecca. She's Michael's former fiancé." Sophie whistled, eyes wide. "She didn't come to get even for breaking up her engagement?" "I didn't break up Michael's engagement, Sophie." Ellie glared at her sister. "Both of them told me they were over long before I ran into Michael again. They just didn't know it." For a moment, Sophie considered this. "If this had happened weeks ago, I'd question your sanity." "And now?" Sophie grinned. "I just hope Michael doesn't turn into that stupid teenager again." Ellie laughed. "He won't." Dinner at Laura's house was loud, colorful, and full of chaotic warmth. The kitchen was a jumble of clattering silverware, children's laughter, and the buttery scent of garlic bread mingling with cheese baking in the oven. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling, and a glittering paper banner read, "Happy 8th Birthday, Lily," in wobbly, hand-drawn letters. Lily ran up the moment Ellie walked through the door, hugging her tightly. "You came!" "I wouldn't miss it," Ellie said. "I heard there'd be cake." "And presents," Lily added with a dramatic whisper. Michael tousled Lily's hair. Ellie starts coming around, and suddenly I'm an afterthought. Lily gave him a weird look. Of course you are. Ellie's a girl, you're just a boy. They laughed at that, and Michael produced a wrapped gift with a crooked bow and handed it to her. I got you something, he said, crouching to Lily's level. Ellie helped me pick it out, so if it's bad, blame her. Lily giggled and tore into the wrapping, revealing the very book Michael had bought weeks earlier. The one with the watercolor cover and a story about a fiercely imaginative girl and her talking cat. Oh, she cried. It's the one Ellie reads at story time. She said it was a winner, Michael said with a grin. Lily beamed. You guys are the best. Dinner was full of laughter. David cracked jokes about Michael's aversion to spice and made exaggerated toasts to new friends, old sisters, and eternal nieces. Laura rolled her eyes, but with affection. At one point, Lily disappeared and came back with a crayon drawing on folded construction paper. She handed it to Michael with a proud flourish. It's you and Aunt Ellie. The crayon colors were bold, almost bleeding over the edges of the paper, as if even Lily's enthusiasm couldn't be contained by the lines. The figures were barely recognizable, all stick limbs and oversized heads, but one figure had brown hair and a beard. The other had curly hair and a pink dress. Between them was a cat, a tree, and what looked suspiciously like a tiny house. Ellie traced the drawing and smiled at Lily. When her attention turned to something else, Ellie's eyes met Michael's. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. What passed between them was far more than mere words could say. While the others were in the kitchen fussing over dessert, Laura and Ellie found themselves alone on the back deck, watching the sky shift into its early evening colors. The distant hum of conversation and bursts of laughter from the kitchen drifted through the open window, mingling with the chirp of crickets in the yard. You're good with her, Laura said, glancing sideways. She's easy to love. What about Michael? Laura asked, smiling. Ellie laughed. He's less easy, but he's trying. Laura nodded, thoughtful. I always knew there was someone back in the past he never talked about. Not the whole story, just something unfinished. Something that left a mark. I didn't expect to be that mark, Ellie said. Laura gave her a long look. You're younger than him, right? By a year, Ellie said. I assume you've done the math. Laura laughed. Oh, believe me, I'm not judging. A year is nothing. I once dated a guy 3 years younger. Total mistake. But this doesn't feel like a mistake. Ellie looked down at her hands. He's making an excellent case for himself. That's all anyone can do. Laura stood, brushing off her hands. Just don't go easy on him. He's always been the kind who needs to earn it. Ellie smiled. I know. That night, back in Michael's apartment, Ellie unfolded Lily's drawing again. The colors were uneven, the shapes childlike, but there was something touching about the way Lily had drawn them. Close together, hands almost touching. She traced a fingertip over the little house in the corner and whispered, She's got a wonderful imagination. From the couch, Michael, now sitting with a mug of tea in hand, looked up. Or insight. They said nothing else. They didn't need to. The call came just after midnight. Michael had barely closed his eyes when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with David's name and a brief message. It's time. He was dressed and out the door in 5 minutes. At the hospital, he found David pacing just outside the maternity wing, his phone in one hand and a cup of vending machine coffee in the other. A faint whiff of cinnamon and nutmeg still clung to the hospital hallway from a pie someone must have brought to the nurse's station. She's already 5 centimeters, David said without preamble. Contractions are regular. She's in full-on command mode. Michael gave a sympathetic grin. So everything's normal then. More or less. She made me come out to update everyone before I go back in. You're on deck with snacks and moral support. Michael looked around and spotted his brother Ryan seated near the windows with Andrew and their mother, Evelyn, who was sipping from a thermos and knitting something soft and yellow. She said you'd need me? Michael said. Don't flatter yourself, David said. She just doesn't want me to forget who's holding her hand when things get intense. He gave Michael a brief, grateful pat on the shoulder before disappearing back through the double doors. A few minutes later, the elevator dinged. Michael looked up and saw Ellie. She wore a sweatshirt over leggings, her curls frizzy from sleep, her face soft with concern. "Laura messaged me," she said. "I didn't want to stay home." Michael's chest warmed at the sight of her as she settled in beside him. "I'm glad you came. I brought snacks," Ellie added, lifting a small tote bag, "in case David needs to stress-eat trail mix. You might earn aunt status just for that." "I already have it," according to Lily. They joined the others in the waiting area. His siblings greeted Ellie with easy smiles, some more curious than others, but there was no tension, just the comfortable hum of family holding space together. The hours passed. Conversations came and went. Evelyn napped with her knitting in her lap. Ellie leaned against Michael's shoulder at one point, and he didn't move. It felt like belonging. Just before dawn, a nurse stepped into the waiting area, her face bright with evident joy that never seemed to get old in her line of work. "She's here, healthy and beautiful. Laura's doing great. They'll be ready for brief visits soon." Michael stood. "Can we—" "She asked for you," the nurse said. "All of you." He glanced at Ellie, who blinked in surprise. "Me?" Michael offered his hand. "Guess we're a package deal now." She didn't hesitate. In the softly lit room, Laura lay propped up on pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes glowing as she looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms. "Meet your newest niece," she whispered as the family crowded around. Michael stepped closer, awestruck. "She's perfect." "Name still pending," David said from beside her. "But she's got lungs like her brother." Laura smiled. "And your ridiculous ears." Michael laughed and reached out. Laura passed the baby into his arms. She was small, warm, and heavy with the weight of newness. Her fingers curled around nothing, her face squinting in sleep. He swallowed against the lump in his throat. Then, after a minute, he turned and stepped toward Ellie. "You want to hold her?" Ellie's eyes widened. "Me?" "She already likes you," Laura said. "She kicked when she heard your voice." Ellie reached out, cradling the newborn with practiced gentleness. The baby was impossibly warm and light, her tiny breaths soft against Ellie's collarbone. The quiet of the room felt sacred, broken only by the soft beep of monitors down the hall. Ellie stared down at her, something flickering behind her eyes. Part awe, part ache, part wonder. Michael didn't look away. Watching Ellie hold a child stirred something in him, something steady and certain. The sort of complex feelings every man has for the woman he loves, holding an infant. For a moment, Michael wondered if he would have felt the same way if Rebecca had been here instead. Then he pushed the thought away. It didn't matter. They left the hospital as the sun crept up over the horizon, casting golden light across the parking lot. They walked in silence for a while, not needing to fill the air. Then Ellie said softly, "It's strange. I never thought I wanted kids, but that made me wonder." Michael glanced at her, then looked back at the road ahead. "You never wanted kids? What about your dreams when you were in junior high and this older kid kept hanging around you?" Ellie swatted at him. "I didn't want them then." They continued walking. "I've always wanted a family," Michael said. "But only if it feels like this. Like home." She didn't speak, but he felt her listening. He continued, his voice quieter now. "Seeing you hold her, it did something to me. Made me wonder what it would be like if someday it was our child." She turned to look at him, eyes wide but not afraid. And without a word, she reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined, naturally now. Not as a question or a maybe, but as something real, something becoming. The air was crisp and carried the mingled scents of kettle corn and caramel apples, laughter from the Ferris wheel drifting across the fairgrounds. Booths lined the park's winding path, filled with pottery, paintings, knit scarves, and hand-poured candles. The trees above had turned a vibrant patchwork of gold and red, their leaves dancing down in slow spirals. Michael strolled beside Ellie, their fingers entwined. her other hand holding a paper cup of cider. The twinkle of the rings he had placed on her finger was only slightly less noticeable than the gentle swell under her shirt that carried new life. The baby gave a gentle kick, as if impatient to keep moving, and Ellie smiled down at the small bump. Every so often, they stopped to admire a painting or listen to one of the acoustic performers scattered throughout the fair. He wasn't in a rush. He never was when he was with her. Ellie's arm slipped around his as they passed a booth selling handmade jewelry. She leaned in a little, her voice quiet. "I used to come to this every year and wonder if I'd ever run into you." Michael smiled. "You probably did. I just wasn't smart enough to say hello." "I saw Rebecca yesterday." "How was she?" Michael asked with a knowing smirk. "Glowing with love. Stephen is good for her, it seems. More so than a certain former fiancé I could name." Michael turned to her and kissed her gently. "We're fortunate we realized in time. Now we'll both have what we wanted, not the pale echo we would have had together." Before Ellie could answer, a small blur in a rainbow sweater came barreling toward them. "Miss Ellie!" Lily shouted, launching herself into Ellie's legs. Ellie staggered back a step, laughing as she tightened her grip to keep from dousing them both in sticky sweetness. "You're supposed to be with your mom." "She's over there," Lily said, pointing to a table where Laura and David were browsing wooden toys. "Are you coming to Thanksgiving?" "Mom said maybe." Ellie glanced up at Michael. He was already smiling. "We'll be there," Ellie said. "Good," Lily said, satisfied. "It's not fun unless you are." She gave one last squeeze and dashed off. From across the clearing, Laura looked over and smiled. Not the surprised kind, or the hopeful kind. The knowing kind. They started walking again. Ellie looked down at her cider. "You really should have said hello." Michael glanced at her, eyes warm. "I'm just glad I finally did." And under the canopy of turning leaves, surrounded by light, laughter, and the quiet hum of art and life, they kept walking together.
Original heartwarming fiction every week. Subscribe for your next great story.